talk about Mr. Anthony Joshua. What is the situation regarding Anthony Joshua? Obviously, his gym visits to see various trainers in the US. What's the situation with Robert McCrappen?
I think, the speculation's been unbelievable, hasn't it? I mean, he came out with me to the States. He wanted to have a chill. He wanted to go and travel around. He wanted to see gyms. He wanted to speak to people. He's a guy that loves to absorb knowledge. And he went to see a number of gyms and fighters and trainers. It's not, he hasn't split from Rob McCracken. He hasn't decided that he's going to join another trainer. I think he's just trying to learn, trying to look at his setup, trying to look at ways to improve. And he's working. He's out there putting the work in now every day, getting ready for the rematch. And I've never seen him so focused for a fight, for a rematch. And he just wants to get it 100% right. He knows he must win this fight. So, as I said, went to see, you see, some put it out on social media, some didn't put it out, some didn't do interviews, but he's not hiding anything. He was with me on the West Coast, then he went to Texas, now he's back home. So it's just a case of taking in information.
Ed, are you saying that he's not then specifically gone out to America to look for a new trainer to replace Robert McCracken?
That wasn't the reason behind the trip. No, it wasn't like I'm going to America to find a new trainer. It was just I want to get away. I want some time away. He chilled out for a little bit. He went to a couple of gyms. He went to see obviously Canelo and watch him spar, talk to him. Met with Eddie Reynoso, as you've seen. Charlo's, Ronnie Shields, these guys. There's a number of other gyms he went to as well. It wasn't necessarily just a focus on, meeting trainers. It was just going, it might be more to do with the setup and where he trains as well. Does he need a new environment to train in? Does he need a new energy, I suppose? But he was also training out there. He took a number of his training team with him. It's not like he's, out there on his own. And just thinking on his feet, just working, just focused and like I said, training now and just looking at ways to improve and make sure he wins a rematch.
Ed, could he also be exploring the possibility of just adding someone to the team? Like, I'm not saying alongside McCracken, could he be looking for someone to come in as well, to add to his team?
Yeah, it's not, honestly, it's not. There is absolutely no definitive mindset or answer or whatever. It's just experiences. It's just looking at different gyms, looking at training, looking at, where he could station himself, set himself. It doesn't mean, oh yeah, AJ's moving to America. It's not, but it's just, he's a very driven individual, right? So since this defeat, all he's thought about is how to win this rematch. And while he's got this downtime, this is the kind of individual AJ is. He's not partying. He's not going on holiday. He's not out enjoying himself. He just wants to get it right. So he's driven by that. And this whole experience is just learn, talking, set up, gyms, environment, trainers, training. What have I got to change to make sure I win this fight?
Big love to my General John Chappell for sponsoring man's YouTube membership page. Any of the dons out there who want to make sure the YB got plenty of coins to waste on his man's AJ, yeah? Lick off the big blue join button. You're done now. Anyway, let's move on. So, talking about AJ, talking about coins, what do we know? Your man's Eddie Hearn came out and reiterated what he said about 2 weeks ago. Don't forget, I leaked the video. 2 weeks ago where Eddie Hearn came out and said, people keep ringing me, asking, offering help. They need to F off. Yeah? And obviously, about 3-4 days ago, it all kicked off. AJ was pictured in LA and pictured in Texas and whatnot. And loads of, he's leaving, Rob McCrappen and all this kind of stuff. And you man know what my underlying message was. My underlying message was, as far as AJ goes, I'll believe it when I see it. Yeah? I warned you, man. I said, listen, don't get emotionally invested into things. Because And for me, yeah, even if AJ did 100% leave Rob McCrappen, I'm still not getting emotionally invested, because that's only half of it. Half of AJ's problem is his training team are crap. Yeah? His training team will go down as one of the worst training teams in the history of the game, because he's got about 10 man. Yeah? This isn't the case of, well, YB, you know, he's got 10 man. He's got Fernando Alonso. He's got Job. He's got McCrappen. He's got 3 trainers. So it's not like, well, someone had a bad day. You've got 3 mans who are crap. Wow! It's bad. Wow! And by the way, not one of their mans is a Hall of Fame trainer. How can you have, potentially, or wanting to be, Hall of Fame fighter, who has 3 trainers, and not one of them, man, could even get a sniffing near to being in the Hall of Fame? Don't make no sense to me. But that is the logic of AJ, you see. AJ's weird, whatever you want to call it, team. But like I was saying, even if AJ did change trainers, which he's not going to do, because he's mentally soft, yeah? AJ's more worried about being loyal to a man who's not loyal to him. AJ's more worried about being loyal to his cuckold position. Let's call a spade here. Rob McCrappen has AJ cuckolded. It's a fact, yeah? Because guess what? When AJ's training in the UK, what's Rob doing? Rob's swanning off doing other things. You know what I'm saying? Rob's putting his pipe around all different places. You know what? Let's use an analogy here. Yeah? If Rob McCrappen and AJ were in a monogamous relationship, Rob McCrappen right now would be playing away. Yeah? One of them ones. Rob's that Don who says, oh, you know, I want to bring more people into the relationship. Because guess what? Rob, he brought Team GB into the relationship. Oops. AJ right now is sitting there with the camera, having to watch Rob and Team GB do their thing. And he's sitting there like, oh, I'm not really comfortable with this, but it's Rob wanting to experiment. Yeah, that's what it is, 100%. Because no man who has their own ego and pride is going to allow another man to get off all over their career. That's what's happening right now. Right now, Rob McCrappen, who is already limited as a trainer to the highest degree, is swanning off doing a whole bag of other things with your career at stake. But I hate to break it to you, man, I can't blame Rob no more, because it's not Rob's fault. Rob's doing what he's allowed to do. Why wouldn't he? AJ's a cuck, yeah? I'm pretty sure Rob told AJ, this is what's going to happen, yeah? I haven't got a clue what I'm doing with your career, but nonetheless, I'm still going to swan off and do Team GB, and you're going to sit there and watch me do it, because you are a cuck. And you ain't got no go. I think Rob told him straight, AJ, you ain't going nowhere. We both know you ain't going nowhere. That's why I'm going to do what I'm going to do, because anyone else wouldn't have it. Yeah? Anyone else, it wouldn't even be a question. Honestly. Anyone else, it wouldn't even, even look at Ben Davison. Ben Davison, when Tyson Fury talked about bringing other people into their relationship, Ben Davison, I give Ben Davison credit, because as bad as he is as a trainer, at least he's got integrity as a man, and that's what makes me question AJ. Who is this guy AJ? He's 6'6", but he's not really 6'6". He's not mentally built like a 6'6" man. Because you'd think a 6'6" man would have pride and have ego and think, who does this guy, who does this old man think he is, treating me like that? I don't think so. My career and my future deserves a trainer who believes in it and wants to commit in it as much as I do. Because as humans, we have one life. We have one career. AJ has one life and one career. There's thousands of trainers who would love to commit to that one life and one career. Your man's Rob McCrappen. Even after losses, even after the Usyk loss, even after the Ruiz loss, it still didn't cross his mind. Wait a minute. Shouldn't I commit fully to this individual AJ who's given me everything in my life, more or less? Nope. He didn't stop. He carried on doing the part-time thing. And this is the thing. Even when this was AJ's worst performance, and it happened on the back of Rob McCrappen missing half of the camp. And even then, even when you had your worst fight, and the man who's supposed to be, or the man who's getting head trainer cut, the man who's making head trainer wages, wasn't there for half of your bad camp or your bad fight, you're still not considering sacking him. So like I said, AJ is a cuck. Because nowhere else, if you're not a cuck, it doesn't work. Yeah, it wouldn't work for me. I'm not a cuck. There's no way. There's no way I'm committing to my career fully and some next man head trainer can't do the same. That can't work. And that would be the case even if you was the best trainer. I wouldn't have that. It's basic respect in my world. In my world, I respect you. Listen, if I was AJ, I'd be saying, wait a minute, Rob, do I pay you half of your wages? No, I give you the full cut. So if I'm giving you the full cut of the wages, how am I not getting... You know, this doesn't make no sense to me. Wait a minute. I pay you full wages and you give me half commitment, half time. Where they do that? I'll tell you where they do that. The only place I know on earth, yeah, where that kind of thing exists is in cuckold relationships. It's a fact. It's the only place it exists. The only place I know you can share a two-man thing. Explain it. Where else does it happen? Because it don't happen in the animal kingdom. In the animal kingdom, they fight into the death for their piece of... You know what I mean? For their snatch. I ain't seen... You man tell me. I've never seen no lion say to another lion, yeah, man, well, we can both have a go on her. No. They fight into the death. And winner takes all. And rightfully so. The only place it exists is in some fruity tooty humans who are into the cuckold thing. That's it. Yeah? It don't exist nowhere else. Not in the corporate world. For example, all of you mans here who have contracts, who have jobs. In fact, even if you don't have a full contract, even if you're 0 hours, guess what? You ain't telling them. When your 0 hours Don rings you up and says, yeah, we want you booked in from 8 till 5 or whatever it is. You're booked in 8 till 5. I'll tell you what to do. You pick up the phone and tell them, yeah, you're going to pay me from 8 till 5, but I'm going to swan off to Team GB from 8 till 4, or 8 till 12, sorry, from 8 until 12:30, for half of the time. See what 0 hours manager Don tells you. Oops. He can look at you going out funny. So even nowhere is it acceptable for that to happen. But for some reason, at the pinnacle of sport, at the $1 million level, it's happening. So, and I'm afraid to say, people, this actually says, I've spent a lot of time roasting Rob McCrappen, but this, on hindsight, on reflection, this little weird relationship says more about AJ. It actually is, it's giving me, things are making more sense now, people, to me. For a long time, we've ignored this, but I actually think it means, or I actually think it explains a lot more than what's going on. I think it feels, for me at least, this little relationship that's going on between AJ and Rob McCrappen explains a lot more than what it is. Meaning that it takes a certain... Do you think a man who allows that? Do you think a man who allows their head trainer to swan off and do other things? What kind... That there is a soft man. I'm sorry, it's the truth. How can we expect him to go in there like a warrior when he don't have to... how can you expect him to go in like a warrior when he can't even handle his own troops like a warrior? It's a bit like... Think about the great Roman generals. What would happen if one of their underlings was half committed? Yeah? They're getting made an example of. AJ, if AJ was a true warrior, a true general, he'd have made an example out of Rob. So all of the other goofies around him know, listen, that's not acceptable in this squadron. Yeah? In this platoon, that kind of behaviour, thinking you're gonna give me half of your commitment, it don't exist. You get cut off. That's what should have happened. It never should have crossed. And to be honest, I can't even blame Rob. Because again, this for me goes deeper than blaming Rob. Because what we understand is, Rob was always Team GB, folks. We can't blame Rob. AJ was the one who said to Rob, please take me. And that's when Rob said, AJ, yeah, I can work with you, but I'm going to keep my GB job. This wasn't actually Rob's fault. AJ was prepared. See what I mean? That mentality. AJ, back in 2016 when he hired Rob full time, AJ was prepared to cuckold himself just to have Rob. He was desperate for Rob. Yeah, he's like the man in a relationship when their missus tells them, "Oh, I want to bring another man in." No other sane man, no other masculine, dominant man will accept that. But certain dons, cuck dons, say, "Oh, you know what? I'd rather have you with another man than not have you." To no one else, that can't work. I'm gone. Yeah, that's your business. No way. But for certain individuals, they accept that. And I'm afraid to say, people, it's making sense now. It's making sense why when a cruiserweight was popping him in the mouth, he weren't interested in fighting back. How can he? He's sharing his mans. He can't even set pace in his own squad room. How's he going to set pace on the battlefield when his own mans are running rings around him? And he's soft. That's soft. That's soft. I don't care what no one says. That's soft. Yeah? Too soft. For too long, I've heard things like, yeah, but YB, that's his father figure. He's already got a dad. What is this? You've already got a dad. I wouldn't even mind yet. Some individuals, or quite a lot of individuals from the hood, their dad's in jail, or their nuclear family's broken up. Their mum's been doing, you know what I mean? The mum's addicted, and the dad's in jail. A vulnerable individual like that, I'd excuse it. But AJ got a functional mother, a functional father. In fact, think of all the dysfunctional sports people we've heard of before, Mike Tyson. I understood why Mike Tyson was dependent on Custodio, if that makes sense. That made sense. He didn't have nothing else going on. His whole nuclear family his whole family was completely dysfunctional. AJ would be the poster boy of the opposite of that. So you don't get no excuses. You don't need another father figure. What you need is to care about your career, yeah, and do what needs to be done. But for some reason, again, it links all back in. AJ's more focused on proving how much humility he has, proving how moist he can be. Oh, don't worry. Yeah, Rob, you can have 2 different jobs, and yeah, Rob, you can swan off to the Olympics, and my head trainer can do what he wants, and I'll just prove I can. And that's the thing. For years, AJ and his fans would tell me, oh, I've been calling it out. How's this working? Number 1, Rob ain't no good. Number 2, he ain't even there for half the time. Number 3, he don't want to commit to you for the whole time. So, what's that about? And for years, people told me, YB, you don't get it, YB. Rob's like a father figure, and Rob did this, Rob did that. I can't understand that thinking for a minute. I can't understand it. Rob did what was good for him. He saw AJ as a super athlete, and that won him a gold medal. So as far as I'm concerned, yeah, AJ and Rob are broke even after the Olympics, because Rob got a great medal haul. Yeah. Do you think? And this is the thing. Someone doing you a favour would be, AJ, you are an average boxer. Let me go out of my way to help you. That's an example of someone putting themselves out. Putting yourself out for a gold medal home Olympic medalist, that's not really putting yourself out. That's doing that. I'm not saying it's a selfish act. Obviously, Rob wasn't being selfish, but it didn't hurt him, did it? That there's what you call a mutually beneficial transaction. Where you man tell me, is there a load of examples of Rob McCrappen putting himself out to other people who are average? Oops. Now, to be fair, we wouldn't necessarily know. I'm just saying. I haven't heard a load of Dons saying, yeah, but YB, he helped me when I was average. Oops. Yeah. But anyway, the point is, people, I know I haven't exactly honed in on the actual topic of this video, but it's all relevant. And the bottom line is, Eddie Hearn's come out and told you. And listen to the language he uses. He uses very specific language, and he hammers home the fact that Rob McCrappen ain't going nowhere. He says AJ's back home now, and AJ only spent 2 days with some people, and this was mainly about learning and trying to change the environment, and AJ was trying to pick up some tips to take back. That's what the underline, or the bottom line after this Eddie Hearn thing was, AJ went there for a few days to pick up some things, to see if he could nick some knowledge to take back to his cuckold relationship with Rob McCrappen. That's it. So again, to use another analogy, it's like the kind of one where AJ's gone away to bring some AJ's gone away to bring some new tricks back to his weird little thing he's got going on. Yeah? That's the equivalent. Oh, look, I picked up some new tricks. I learned this from this other couple. Yeah, let's bring this into our... What the hell, that's what he's done. He's trying... Rather than fixing the real problem, rather than saying, you know what, we've got issues here. There's issues here between me and Rob. Our relationship is not being fulfilled successfully. And rather than breaking it off and getting clear, AJ is still trying to patch up this cuckold relationship. It's a madness. Still trying to patch it up. Oh, I'll tell you what, I won't get rid of Rob. I'll go away to America for a week, and I'll spend a few hours in a few gyms, and hopefully I can come back. And then, what is this? What is this about? What, honestly, and I'm convinced now, there is some sort of Stockholm syndrome going on here. AJ is Stockholm to Rob. I can't explain what's going on. I'm telling you now, I reckon 10, 20 years from now, we're going to find out some things. Because in some sort of scandal. Yeah? It's going to be some sort of Team GB boxing scandal. Because it making no sense. Some sort of Savile thing, I don't know. One of them ones, yeah? Because for me, it don't make no sense. It don't make no sense. Robbie's crap! And this is the thing. I wouldn't mind, yeah, if Rob was a genius. And AJ was begging to keep a genius around. Rob is useless. I'm sorry. I've heard so many people. Tony Timms came out and said, oh, Rob knows everything about boxing. Rob don't know a lick. I'm a casual, and I guarantee you I know more about boxing than he does. Guarantee it. And, YB, you think... I'm telling you now. I'd bet my life on it. I know more about what McCrappen does. 100%. I guarantee you, if we could train the same fighter, my fight would be better than his. 100%. Yeah? And if I'm ever rich enough, I'm gonna prove it to you, man, as well. Because I'll say, Rob, me and you, we're going to train the same fighter and see who look better. Because you can't train a fighter. AJ does the same mistakes for 8 years. He fought the same way for 8 years. And then he got beat by Ruiz, and they added one thing. They added how to run away. Wow, of all the skills to learn, the easiest one is how to touch and jab and disengage. That's almost the first thing they teach you in defensive boxing. How to dance around and not to hold your feet. And that's what they added. That's what they took from the Ruiz loss. Okay, we now need to learn how to run around. We now need to learn how to take one of the most explosive athletes of the last 20 years in the sport and turn him into what was at the time Tyson Fury 2.0. That's what they took from the Ruiz loss. Not let's double down on AJ's nature and AJ's natural skills and AJ's natural attributes and let's tighten them up because they was already sloppy. It's not like they was banging. They was sloppy anyway. And the fact that all this is going on and still, even Eddie Hearn, you hear him here. Eddie Hearn's banging the drum about, oh no, Eddie Hearn's almost taking a protective stance for Rob. Oh no, he's not leaving Rob. Oh, how could you think that? Oh, people are jumping to conclusions. Eddie, what's wrong with you, Eddie? What's wrong with you? Honestly, I'm telling you now, there's something weird going on here. Why are you so protective of Rob, who's useless? Eddie, explain. Because I remember Don King, back in the 80s and 90s, he would literally manage his fighters. Don King, and even Shelley Finkel and Bob Arum, back in the 80s and them times, promoters, because they're invested in their athletes, they would actually end up managing, a lot of the time, the training situation. They'd want to know, who is my investment training with? I need to get my investment with the best trainer. And yes, the sport's moved on some, but unfortunately, not in the right direction. Because clearly AJ can't manage himself. He's too emotionally caught up in things. But then you've got Eddie shilling for Rob as well. Eddie, in the last 5 years, what skills have you seen Rob implement into AJ? Which ones? Which ones? Yeah, he's the same fighter he was, but worse, 5 years ago. He was more aggressive, more ferocious, and God knows what else, heavier shots. Back in 2016, 2015. Rob's taking him backwards, and then you're shilling. It's almost like, Eddie, have you been got to? I'm trying to... Someone got to you, Eddie. It's almost like some MTK thing. They got to you. They think, we want Fury to win, so let's get AJ got. That's what. I'm sorry, but I got to put it out there. Is that what's happening here? Because something for me ain't adding up here. It's like Eddie knows. Yeah, well, I've been paid for AJ to get whooped because I don't care what no one says. If AJ is Eddie's charge, how can he not see that Rob is at best average? And anyone who knows anything about the sport knows one trainer is never a good look. And even historical precedent says, no, even the best trainers, even the best ones, What's wrong with even if Rob was the best, which he's not? What's wrong with moving on and developing some real understanding? Because here's the thing: you don't know what you don't know. You don't actually know what a good trainer is until you've had about 5. Then you can sit back and say, "Yep, the best one was this guy." When you've only had, it's almost like when you've had one relationship before. You don't know what good is. You don't know what the fire top is until you've had. You know what I'm saying? Until you had a few things, because you have to know what the dead toppy is to know what the fire is. Do you understand? If all you've had is yeah. Sometimes sometimes you need a fire lighty, yeah. Sometimes you need a fire lighty to suck the spirit out of man to know, wow. Yeah, that thing was dead. That thing from 2 years ago had a dead toppy. No good. Yeah? That thing that thing didn't have no kosher. What's the other one called? What's the one that the Muslim? What's it called? Halal. Yeah. Some chicks have the kosher. Some chicks have the halal. But trust me. But you don't know. You don't always get the halal thing. You don't always get the kosher thing. Sometimes you get a dead thing. Yeah, don't get me wrong. In 2021, there's a lot of dead things going around, but sometimes you get the kosher. Sometimes you get the halal. Yeah, females must know you must have that halal. If you ain't got the halal toppy, keep it where it is. Yeah, keep that dead thing to yourself. That's what people say. What's that saying? The parents say, if you haven't got females, if you haven't got no halal or no kosher to share, if you ain't got nothing good to say, if you ain't got no good toppy to say, keep it to yourself. No doubt. What I was saying, I got caught. Wait a minute, I got caught up talking about toppy. Where was I? Yeah. Oh yeah. I was saying, if you don't know what's bad until you've had a few different things. AJ had one thing his whole career. Tell I, he had Tony Sims a bit as well, but I don't know what's going on. Does AJ not see himself? And that's what's got me convinced. I can't explain it. I can't put my finger on it because really isn't a complex situation here. Everyone who's anyone knows Rob must go. And it's not even just Rob. And I did warn people because Eddie brings it up. Eddie says that, oh, well, look, AJ even went with some of his training team. He went out there with Fernando Alonso. And that's what I told you. Don't get your hopes up because if you're planning on rebooting your team, the fact you're going out there with them, it's not a good look. And in fact, I even said that the reason Rob isn't with him is because Rob's never with him. Rob's with Team GB. Rob can't leave. So, that wasn't a shock. That Rob weren't there. People were saying, oh, YB, he going to this new trainer because Rob ain't, no, Rob can't go, Rob don't go nowhere with AJ. Rob's a part-time AJ head trainer. So, he swans around with Fernando Alonso instead, who's also useless. And I mean, this whole notion that you can go away and bring bits back, what is that? That there in itself is an arrogant way of thinking. I'm sorry, it's a fact. That is an arrogant way of thinking. What makes you believe that you can absorb all of a trainer's knowledge in a few hours or in 2 days and bring it back? If it was that easy, your man's Rob wouldn't be useless, AJ. Do you understand that? If it was easy spending 2 days with people, then why is your man's Rob useless? Why is your man's Fernando Alonso useless? And again, I have to question people like Eddie. I have to question people like 258 Management. Your charge, your investment has a team, and two of AJ's team, yeah? He's got Fernando Alonso, he's got Rob McCrappen, he's got Drob. 2 of them, man, have never had a world champion before. The other guy, Rob, has had 1 world champion, I believe, in Carl Froch, who was known as having close to no skill. I give Carl Froch credit. He had a lot of heart. He had a lot of world-class Hall of Fame attributes, or a few world-class Hall of Fame attributes. But none of them were on the technical side. None of the skills Carl Froch exhibited, yeah, were skills that were taught by Rob McCrappen. That's a fact. When you go to a trainer, you want to adopt skills that are transferable. Heart isn't transferable. In fact, if anything, Heart and motivation and fighting style, it only goes one way. Well, as far as Rob McCrappen goes, it does. Because Rob McCrappen, he only going to take away from your heart. He only going to make you more boring. He only going to make you less ferocious. And to be fair, that's not necessarily true, because some fighters or some trainers can make you more ferocious. Emmanuel Stewart can make you more ferocious. There's a number of trainers who historically have proven they can make you more ferocious. They can give you that oomph. Clearly, Rob McCrappen isn't one of them. Rob McCrappen, he hasn't got the transferable skills, and he can't give you the non-transferable skills. He can't give you anything. And that's what the facts show. Look at Carl. Where's the long list of things that, oh, well, YB, look, Carl didn't change for 10 years, and unfortunately, that's becoming AJ's legacy. AJ's starting to mirror, but worse, the legacy of Carl Froch. So at least Carl Froch managed to be consistent with his ability to get stuck in. AJ, Rob McCrappen is finally, well not finally, over time, Rob McCrappen has worn away at AJ's ability to have a fight. Clearly, Carl Froch's resilience was higher, but AJ's barriers have been broken down by Rob. Rob's boringness, Rob's monotone has finally weared away. But again, I'm not blaming Rob no more, because that's Rob don't know a pig don't know he smells. Yeah? Not Rob's fault, he's useless. As far as he's concerned, I've got the best fighter in the world employing me. So that fulfills all of his ego. I must be good because I've got the best fighter or one of the best fighters in the world employing me. Unfortunately, the best fighter in the world and his management team and everyone who's supposed to have influence over him, none of them seem to care. None of them seem to get it. That's what's worrying. And that's what makes you think there must be something else going on here. Because how can everyone else see it? Because I'm not being funny. The whole YouTube community, and yes, people laugh at us. Oh, YouTubers, but we know this. I hate to break to you. You rarely get everyone saying the same thing. Every single person, AJ fans, well, apart from the AJ shills, every single person, though, Fury fans, Wilder fans, everyone has said the same. Years ago, Hatman, Rob must go. Where do you get that consensus from? And by the way, it's a strong consensus. I haven't heard no one yet who's actually, again, apart from the AJ shills. AJ shills have said things like, YB, but look at how great he was in the Ruiz 2 rematch. What? You call that greatness? Running around against a man who's 300 pounds and didn't train. That's greatness. Wow. Super athlete versus Mr. Blobby, and you call that greatness, going 12 rounds. So yeah, but anyway, put them shills to one side. Everyone has a strong consensus, Rob must go. So if that's the case, if everyone else can see it, why, the people close to AJ, why can't they see it? What are your incentives, Eddie? Who's paying you, Eddie? Yeah? 258 management, who's paying you? Well, it don't make no sense to me. This looks like clear sabotage. Because someone, I won't even mind you, fair enough. If Eddie Hearn came out and said, yeah, clearly Rob's useless. But I spoke to AJ and he's a cuck and he's doubled down, he wants Rob. I'd get that, I'd say, well, what can we do? AJ's in charge. But the fact that no one wants to ring the bell, especially Eddie, now the fact that AJ's already signed a life contract. So you haven't got to be worried about, oh, he's going to leave me, if I'm telling the truth. And by the way, over time, won't people appreciate your truth? Maybe they won't, but at least your conscience can be clear. You know what? I said my piece. I said what I know to be true. How can we all be wrong? How can everyone be wrong? And by the way, for a long time, Team AJ got away with being wrong. And a lot of the rhetoric they used to justify being wrong, to justify the support of Rob McCrappen, was, YB, he's got belts, he's rich. Oops, has he got belts? And this is the problem. I try to warn people. Why do we have to wait every time until a situation like this, where it's on the ropes? Why did we have to get to this point? Why couldn't AJ have been with a progressive trainer 5 years ago? Or at least 2 years ago? After the Ruiz loss, should have been, the penny should have dropped then. But instead, he doubled down with uselessness. And that Ruiz rematch demonstrated that. Because when Lennox Lewis lost, him and Manuel Stewart doubled down. And in fact, that time Lennox lost as well. He went and got Manny Stewart. He went and got the trainer who beat him. That there is higher level thinking. And the thing is, I'm telling you, any trainer will be better than Rob McCrappen. Anyone. Never mind the best trainer. Anyone will be better than him. But for me, it's almost the fact that, I mean, there's some big talk about AJ going to Ronnie Shields. I mean, even though Eddie's already told us AJ's back now, so he ain't staying there. But what I'm saying is, there's been a lot of talk about Ronnie Shields, and even Ronnie Shields has said that, yeah, AJ, I spoke to AJ, and he said, oh, if he does come, he's going to bring Fernando Alonso with him. What's that about? It's quite, I'm telling you, people, there's something quite weird going on here. Why is AJ attached to these dudes for like that? I don't get it. Bring him for what? He's shown Fernando Alonso. No, don't forget, people. Fernando Alonso was one of the guys who was in the corner shouting brilliant. He wasn't being real with you. Why do you want? And it's a shame because there's been many fighters who have been accused of having a team full of yes men around them. And for a long time, AJ kind of hovered under the radar. Traditionally, people wouldn't look at AJ's team as a bunch of yes men, but I'm afraid to say it's now become apparent. Everyone, Eddie Hearn, 258 Management, all of them are a bunch of yes men. No one has critically come out and said, we've got a problem here. You've got two categorically inexperienced and useless trainers in Jobber. Yeah, you got a guy called Jobber. I mean, I'm being funny. You should have known then. He was onto an L, a Jobber. How do you know a man called Jobber in your camp? Wow. And you got another guy named after a F1 driver. Wait there a minute. So you got a Jobber, and you got Fernando Alonso, a racing driver. A racing driver wannabe looking ass. And you're in boxing. You got a Jobber and a wannabe racing driver, and you're trying to box. That says it all for me. That says it all. And you're shocked that you can't box. And you're now going to other trainers and saying, oh, if I do come, I'm going to bring Fernando. Bring Fernando for what? So he can gas you up and tell you things are great when they're not. Because you man can just imagine my reaction to that fight the whole way through. Never once in that fight was I saying, in fact, tell I, there was, I think round 6, I think there was a few points or a few punches or a few exchanges in round 6 or round 7 that I said, oh, yeah, AJ's got this. But apart from about probably a minute, in the 36-minute fight, there was about a minute I was saying good work. But yet them, man, all of them, man, had you gassed from round 1 to round 12. Why are you attached to these individuals for? What's going on here? And I haven't got a problem. If there is something deeper going on, yeah, just come out and own it. I'm not sure what's going on, but something's going on. It's not adding up to me. Why are you attached to Fernando Alonso for? Why are you attached to Rob McCrappen for? What have they got over you? From a mathematical point of view, it just doesn't make sense. Yeah, Lennox Lewis left his trainer to go to Manuel Stewart because Manuel Stewart was the man that beat him. That makes sense. Is it right? Is it wrong? We don't know. But at the time, you can rationalise that. Yep, he's going to the man who beat him. What is the rationalisation of, you've just got beaten by a cruiserweight who should never beat you. You just had no heart, had no oomph. And the whole way through that fight, never once did anyone give you any good advice. Never once did anyone tell you, yeah, you're looking bad right now. You're not winning this fight. We need you to dig deep. We need you to throw some hands. We need you to not being scary in there. Never once. They was gassing you up. And you know that now. And you still are doubling down. Even if we do change trainers, which you're not going to do because we love Rob. Even if we do, I'm bringing Fernando. What's that about? I'll tell you what it's about. It goes back to the underlying problem here. I don't believe AJ is the same person he was in 2016. I think there's been some sort of cabal thing going on. I think it's been cloned, honestly, because I've watched the videos, I've seen the tape, What you man tell me? Go back and watch AJ versus Dillian White behind the gloves are off. Watch it. Watch the full 20-minute video and just look at the man's mannerisms. That there is not a hard man, but that there's a real man. This guy now, I just don't. I'm pretty good at reading character, and I just don't get the same. Like that man who's sitting talking to Dillian, that there. It's a cliche thing to say, but it's true. That there was an alpha male. You can feel the energy. You can feel it. Now, when I look at AJ, I just see this. And even before he lost to Usyk, even before that, I don't get that same. All I see now is fruity tootiness. Oh, he's more bothered about demonstrating his fruity tootiness than he is. And that's the thing. When AJ was being dominant with Dillian White, yeah, he wasn't trying to be dominant. It wasn't an act. See what I'm trying to say? It wasn't an act. You can tell when people are trying to be dominant. And it's not really them. Like, for example, for me, Kevin Samuels, he's a man, he talks to a bunch of women, and he tries to be dominant. You know what I mean? That's fake in my opinion. But real dominance, you don't have to try. You don't have to, I'm going to try and be an arse. AJ with Dillian White, he wasn't trying to put it on. Now, AJ actively tries, okay, we're at the pre-fight press conference. Let me shake his hand and hug him and give him my belt and take a picture with him holding hands. And after the fight, let me go there and take selfies with him and hug him and give. What is all that about? And I think it explains whatever that is, whatever this clone is. It's the same thing. The same thing going on. It explains what's going on now, in my opinion. The whole lot of it's just weird, quite weird. AJ's more bothered about maintaining his relationship with useless trainers. I'm not sure what he's trying to fulfill here, but he's more bothered about maintaining them he wants to maintain non-functional relationships. Listen, AJ, if you like Fernando Alonso as a friend, if you like Rob McCrappen as a friend, you've got enough money, yeah, to employ them to be your friends. Have them sit in the back somewhere like sidemen. Because that's how good they are. In terms of your boxing career, Fernando Alonso and Rob McCrappen, the only purpose they should serve, let them hold your bags. Let them join skins. Yeah? Rob McCrappen and Fernando Alonso need to join aka skins and holding bags and cleaning, doing the washing for you. That should be the extent of their responsibility. Because they don't know anything about boxing. And that's evident from what we saw 2 weeks ago, or however many weeks ago. It's a fact. 4 weeks ago, however long it was, they don't have a clue. They don't. Because if they did, they'd have been doing what all of us were doing. I mean, I had this other guy come out. Who was it? Forgot his name now, but another McCrappen shill. He came out and said, AJ shouldn't leave Rob. Rob knows everything, and he's been with Rob for ages. Jamie Redknapp. No. Jamie Moore. Yes, I'm goofy like that. Jamie Moore came out. Jamie Redknapp came out and said, oh yeah, AJ should stick with what he knows and stick with what he knows. So stick with. You're saying he should stick with getting whooped by cruiserweights. And never mind that. He should stick with people blowing gas up his backside the whole way through. Because how is it we all knew AJ must put his foot down for the last 5 rounds? He's lost them all. He's not winning rounds. He didn't win rounds from round 1 to round 12. He must put the foot down. How can we all know that? But Mr. Jamie Moore and Rob McCrappen and Fernando Alonso and Jobber Clayton, how can none of them, man, have known to say that? They was all cheering brilliant. Then you got Carl the Shield Froch. He's complaining, blaming Jobber and Fernando. So it's all a bit messy, isn't it? Ultimately, it's he said, she said between a bunch of bums. They're all useless. I hate to break it to you, Carl. Carl, your man Rob is useless, and you yourself have admitted it. You said half the time you ain't even listened to Rob, because if you did, you got washed, because he was telling you to run around and not get stuck in. And unfortunately, or thankfully for Carl Froch's career, Carl Froch had that alpha maleness about him. to scrap what Rob was saying. And unfortunately, this new cloned AJ, or sorry, the real AJ, he didn't need to be told, because before he had the natural go in him. Now, I'm not even sure if you told AJ. That's the worrying thing. The worrying thing is, even if Rob had told AJ get stuck in, I'm not even sure he'd have gone. At this point, I'm not sure he got the oomph, and that's the other part of things. Even if he does change his trainer, the other half of things is that changing trainer is only one part of it, people. That doesn't guarantee nothing. The other part, he's going to have to show he has that oomph, because he hasn't shown that in a long time either. Yeah? He hasn't shown the oomph since 2018 against Parker, really. Or 2017 against Takam. That was the last time he had oomph. It's been 4 years. The best part of 4 years. We actually can categorically say, yes, AJ has oomph. We haven't seen no oomph. We haven't seen no grit in 4 years. So changing trainer is one thing. Oomph is another thing. And currently, you've heard from Eddie Hearn there, currently, we ain't getting neither. Because he ain't changing trainers. He ain't changing camp. And that there would be the start of things. Getting a new perspective, getting new people around you. Getting people who are on it around you. Because one thing I do like, well, I know it's not the same brother, but Jamel Charlo, he lost. And he came back with that kind of Deontay Wilder spirit. When Jamel Charlo lost and came back, he was on it. You can tell. In fact, that's a great example. Watch Jamel Charlo's rematch against Tony Harrison. That was a great example of a man on a mission. He came back, and you could just tell. He was throwing shots. Maybe even more aggressive than Deontay Wilder was. He was in there, and Jamel Charlo isn't known as someone who's sloppy, but he almost became sloppy. Which was a bit like Fury and Wilder 3, because there was so much passion in there. You could tell he was loading up. So maybe AJ does need to be around people like Alvarez and some of the Charlos, because they exhibit that. And I hate to say this, but it's true. From the GB team, who's coming up here that has that kind of spite? I haven't seen anyone for years coming up with that kind of spite and that kind of class. I just haven't. Even someone like Joe Joyce. Joe Joyce is good, but he ain't. I wouldn't sit there and say he's spiteful, would you? So the point is, you're hanging around all these amateurs all the time, none of which are particularly spiteful or particularly top level. What is your camp? And there's an old saying, show me the people around you, or something like that. I can't remember what it says, but it's something like, show me the people around you and I'll show you you. Yeah? And the people around AJ, from top to bottom, every single one, whether it's Skins, whether it's McCrappen, whether it's Jobber Clayton, yeah, whether it's Fernando Alonso, Jobber Clayton, Rob McCrappen, whoever you want, the moist guys in the amateur gym, the whole lot of them are soft. Not necessarily soft, but they're all kind of, they're all just a bit of, I don't see no super duper champions out of any of them. And that's what you need, or certainly that's what AJ needs right now. Never mind I don't know about anyone else. Thinking about AJ in particular, that's what he needs. It can't hurt, because guess what? He's spent the last 5 years consistently around mediocrity and just soft normal people. There's never been a sustained period that AJ's been around. And it sounds cliche. I think Spencer Fearon said something similar, but and I can't lie to you, at the time when Spencer X said it, I rolled my eyes and said, that's BS. When I think he said something like, AJ's not around boxing people. And I think, bottom line is, it's true. At the time, I rolled my eyes saying, but really, at this point, in my opinion, the situation is that desperate that it can't hurt, can it? Is my thinking. At this point in time, given the desperate situation we find ourselves in, it can't hurt to get, you know what I'm saying, to completely change things around. And the fact that AJ went away for 2 days and tried to nick some tips, what's that about? Nicking tips. You need a cataclysmic overhaul. That's what must happen now. Cataclysmic. And that means no Fernando Alonso, no Jobber Clayton, no Rob McCrappen. The whole lot need to go, in my opinion. And I'd even get rid of AJ's management team as well. And Eddie Hearn. Because the whole lot of them have been complicit, in my opinion. Now, I know it's not practical for Eddie to go, but that's the kind of energy that should be coming around right now, in my opinion. Completely, you know what I mean? Like I said, cataclysmic. That's the kind of attitude he needs, and unfortunately, it appears that's not going to happen. And I did say this. I said before the Usyk fight, maybe AJ needs another loss. But then I also said, at the same time, maybe it won't even be this loss. I've got a feeling AJ is going to need to lose to Usyk once, and then, hopefully, because I'm telling you now, people, if AJ doesn't make the changes this time, I'm going to hope he gets knocked out by Usyk, because that's what he's going to need, I think. Another reminder, because clearly he thinks that, oh, well, I lost, and maybe, and like, the human mind, it works in stages, yeah? Let me break down to you, man, the stages. So, AJ was trotting along with Rob McCrappen up until 2019. Then, he lost. What did he do? He brought in Fernando Alonso and Jobber Clayton. So that was the first progression. And if AJ had had strong people around him who knew the sport, who knew the signs, at that point, Rob would have gone. Because that's what the greats did. People like Lennox Lewis, they nipped it in the bud early. It didn't take them 5 years for things to play out. Time is of the essence. Career is of the essence. So like I said, that got nipped in the bud real quick. Nipped it right in the bud. That didn't get nipped in the bud real quick. But AJ, like I said, the human mind, the human condition, slowly. So he brought in Fernando Alonso and Jobber Clayton. That was the first step. So AJ knows, and I've been saying this for years, AJ, that action there was a signal that there's something wrong. Because you don't bring in new people if everything's good. But nonetheless, that was the first sign, so he brings in them, man. Then, we find ourselves here. Where he's now gone a step further, and now, not only has he still got them new man in, now he's actually physically gone around to other camps. That's the next step. And if that next step isn't successful, if he doesn't pull the trigger with going with a new trainer, which, by the way, hearing from Eddie Hearn, it's sounding likely now he's not pulling the trigger, he's not getting rid of Rob, and he was just trying to nick tips. That means that he's going to need another loss. And hopefully it will be the most emphatic loss. I don't want him to lose on points. Because that'll only reinforce that things aren't that bad. Oh, well, yeah, well, don't worry, Jobber. Don't worry, Fernando. Don't worry, Rob. We only lost on points. Could be worse. And in a way, that's how AJ fought. When AJ fought Usyk, I think someone said this, it was almost like he was told, oh, well, let's just get through and lose on points. Let's not get knocked out. Because Rob was telling him, oh, stay behind the jab, stay light on the feet. Rob was giving advice as if AJ had boxed his ears off. I mean, in the last round, yeah, Rob was given the same advice that he gave to AJ in the Ruiz fight. In the Ruiz rematch. In the Ruiz rematch, when AJ had won 11 rounds, yeah, Rob was saying, yep, he's coming for a KO. He needs a KO. And that's what Rob was saying in the last round. Talking as if Usyk needed a KO. So, like I was saying, maybe, or it's highly likely at this point in time, AJ's going to need a KO stoppage loss against Usyk to make things click. Because at this point, it's not looking good. It's not looking like he's going to make the changes that should have been made back in 2019. He still doesn't get it. And I think it comes down to, as I've explained, the weird mentality he's got now. This new clone doesn't have the same mentality the other one did. And this new clone has been programmed to focus more on maintaining useless relationships than it has of getting to it and cutting to the point. But maybe we'll get there. Maybe we won't. Because it should be blatantly obvious now, yeah man, there's something wrong. Because I've just got lit up by a cruiserweight who everyone who knows me knows I should have ran through this dude. Or at least tried to. Because fair enough, if Usyk had a box to AJ's ears off and he was coming forward, fair play. But the fact that Chisora, who pretty much got a draw, and Chisora is nothing like AJ used to be, it should have been easy work in my opinion. The fact AJ still doesn't get that, you got beat by a man who Chisora was having fun with. Chisora was playing with Usyk in there. Usyk was sweating and panicking in that ring. Chisora was just going for the motions. He didn't even turn up, to be honest. I believe if Chisora had fought Usyk like he did in the Dillian White rematch, he'd have won that fight. That's what I believe. But anyways, it's irrelevant now. But the fact that AJ can watch his brother Chisora, who's not as talented, Chisora did a better job than you did. And you still think your team is the ones for the job. So maybe he needs to be knocked out by Usyk. Just to make sure he gets it. But even then, to be honest, I wouldn't bet on him making changes. But one thing for sure, people. If he does get stopped by Usyk and he doesn't make no changes, then you can know it's over. I'm telling you now. AJ's legacy and career is over. He'll be the biggest flop in history. Because with that team, he ain't going nowhere. That's a fact. He'll get stopped by Fury. He'll get stopped by Dillian. He'll get stopped by Joe Joyce. He'll get stopped by Dubois. Anyone who wants to have a go on him will have a go on him. Because a cruiserweight just had a go on him and stopped him. Yeah? So it's not a big mental maths here. I'm telling you right now. And for me, it's all about a team. Because there's either one of two things gone on here. Either AJ's been cloned, at which point it's all over anyway. And I hate to say this, but I'm being serious. There's a strong possibility he's been cloned. Because it don't make no sense to me. But putting that to one side, the other possibility, if he hasn't been cloned, that means where has he picked up these soft attitudes from? Do you understand what I'm saying, people? If he's been cloned, it's fine, because it's not. We can't change nothing. If he's been genetically altered, then he's never gonna. You know what I'm saying? He's never gonna get it. That's how it's looking at the moment. If that makes sense. So if it is the case, it's been cloned, and we can forget about it. But if he hasn't, ask yourself, where has the man from 2015 gone? Where has he gone? People say things like, oh, YB, Ruiz knocked out of him. Not true. Because even in the Ruiz fight, watch how the Ruiz fight starts and plays out. That's proof. It's got nothing to do with the Ruiz fight. AJ was already changed by then. In fact, look at the Povetkin fight. Tony Sims left the camp here, and immediately after Tony Sims left, AJ's confidence and style has plummeted. It's a fact. The correlation works perfectly. Tony Sims left. AJ is no longer training AJ used to train at the Matchroom gym, which is Tony Sims' gym. He stopped going there. Now he lives in Sheffield. AJ used to go between Sheffield and the London Matchroom gym. He don't go there no more. That's where the deterioration. That's where it's correlated to. And watch the Povetkin fight. AJ comes out. Because remember, people, AJ used to come out like a wrecking ball. Straightforward. Very few steps back. He'd rarely take more than a step back. He'd come straight forward and then he'd be in and out. Dotting. One step in, one step out. That's what it'd be like for the rest of the fight. He'd never take 6 steps out and dance around. Never do that. Povetkin fight. The Povetkin fight was really the first time he came out of a low guard. He was stepping, he was dancing around as well. That was the first red flag for me. I thought, what's going on here? Because up until that point, up until the Povetkin fight, I'd never seen AJ have his hands low. Well, tell a lie. No, he has. That's a lie. But Forget that. Either way, I'd never seen him dance so much in that Povetkin fight. But guess what? He got the stoppage. So fans who don't know the particulars of boxing, they just see it as, oh, he got a stoppage. Same as the Pulev fight. Oh, but YB, he got a stoppage. You ain't seeing what's going on. You ain't seeing the minutiae, the subliminal stuff. Yeah? He fannied around with Povetkin. He didn't go straight forward and step and hang on. For example, watch the Takam fight. There's a perfect example of how AJ used to fight. AJ spent the whole night in the pocket, banging away with Takam. A year later, I believe, with Povetkin, he didn't go straight forward. Ruiz, he didn't go straight forward. The Ruiz fight was even more tentative than the Povetkin fight. AJ came out and he's nervous. And don't forget, people, in that build-up, that was supposed to be the Jarrell Miller build-up. AJ was supposed to be the most ferocious in that fight. And he came out real scary in that Ruiz fight. He was jabbing and moving and he wasn't committing to nothing. So the damage, in my opinion, had already been done long before Ruiz hit him. His state of mind was already soft. Because in my opinion, he was spending less time with Tony Sims. And more time with boring Rob McCrappen. And over time, that moistness has got worse and worse and worse. And now, we've got to the point where, even when you punch him in the mouth, he still don't get angry. In fact, when you punch him in the mouth, he almost wants to de-escalate the situation. Like, for example, he gets punched in the mouth and he goes back to the ropes. That there is a de-escalation. You're walking away, if that makes sense. Oh, I've been hit. Let me back up to the ropes. That there is, you're basically begging for someone to walk onto you when you go back to the ropes. That's a de-escalation of violence. An escalation would be, okay, he's punched me in the mouth. I'm going to walk to it, walk into the fire. And that's what people like Floyd Mayweather do, or has done in the past. At key points in Floyd's career, if he gets rocked, he's coming straight forward. That's the safest place to be. And Floyd's one of the most defensive fighters going. So where are these behaviours coming from? Like I said, it's clone or it's nurture in Rob. Either way, well, not either way, but Rob must go. His team must go. None of them man are good influences. Because if there was 3 individuals in that corner. Not one of them was saying, AJ, get to work. And again, this guy called Jamie Moore. Jamie Moore came out and said, oh, yeah, well, we can't blame Rob because we don't know the game plan. And maybe AJ just didn't execute the game plan. And, oh, we don't know the game plan. Maybe it wasn't Rob. And listen, but we don't know what happened in training. Maybe the game plan just didn't come off on the night. What? If the game plan wasn't coming off on the night, don't you think one of them would have said that? One of them could have said, AJ, we didn't train for this. AJ, we trained to plough forward and get stuck in. No, that's not what happened. They trained, and I exposed it before the fight. I told you what was going to happen. I leaked the videos. I said, he's training to run around. Everyone thought I was being, YB's a hater. YB sees what he wants to see. Oops. He goes in there, and the rest is history now. And again, the fact that AJ himself can look at that performance and know we train. I think I've got a video coming soon, but in the last week or so, AJ himself admitted we trained. I think he may have told Ronnie Shields. Ronnie Shields, one of the men he met in America in the last week. AJ told Ronnie Shields, we trained to outbox Usyk. We believed we could outbox him. Now, what does that say about your training team? People say Rob's so smart and whatnot. How is it everyone else knew, but you and your training team believed otherwise. If that isn't an indictment on the skills of your team, I don't know what is. Because everyone else knew. Even the most casual fan knew he's got to come out and get on it early. But you and your team went away and did the opposite. What's going on? And in fact, no one's calling it out. Who's Eddie? AJ's management team? No one. No one, as I said weeks ago, a month ago now, no one with influence is actually trying to do something about it. It's mad. But anyway, I know I've ranted on, but it's mind-boggling stuff, and I'm getting to the point now where I'm kind of tired of talking about it. Truth be known, and that's why I ain't gonna keep going around in circles. From now on, if he makes a change, he makes a change. Otherwise, I'm just gonna be riding him because that's what he needs right now. He needs a good riding. Because what BRYB? I can't believe you're a turncoat. I can't believe you're betraying him at his weakest hour. What? Betraying him? He's already got a bunch of mans. He's already got a bunch of soppy mans supporting his wrong actions. People who really care, when you step out of line, they try and put you back in line. They don't massage you doing the wrong thing. I'm not going to cheerlead him going down the wrong path again. He's got plenty of cheerleaders to support. Oh, what AJ, great looking. Yeah, AJ, keep doubling down with your useless team. Keep knowing there's something wrong, but doubling down anyway. What for? What's wrong with scrapping a team and starting all over again? Don't make no sense.